Hi friends, once again welcome to this video tutorial. This video is the third part of the nursery layout. It will focus on the nursery requirements, nursery bed preparations, containers, and the different growing media for the nursery layouts. First of all, let us discuss what we mean by the nursery beds. Nursery bed is defined as a prepared area in a nursery. It's used for sowing seeds, to raise seedlings, and for vegetative multiplication of different species of plants. As you know, nursery is meant for raising seedlings either by vegetative means or by sexual means. So nursery bed is used for sowing seeds to raise seedlings or by vegetative multiplication of different species of plants. It refers to the tilled and well-prepared land. It should have a soil, light to medium textured soil, dry sandy loam or loam in nature. Loam is a soil where sand, silt and clay is in the ratio of 2:1, and it should have high quality of organic matter. It should be well drained, porous topsoil, about 30 centimeter. It should have good water retention capacity and good aeration. And of course, pH should be in the range of 5.5 to 6.5. So first of all, how we will prepare the nursery bed. Soil preparation is the first thing. So soil for beds should be deeply dug. Weeds, stumps, stones, pebbles, etc. should be removed. And then after digging, the aggregates or the clods needs to be crushed to fine tilth, and the fine soil be leveled for preparing seed beds. So if you have a nursery area or a plot, you will first deeply dug it, and then you will remove weeds, stumps, stones, pebbles, and then the larger aggregates, they are to be crushed to fine tilth, and then you will level it, and after leveling you will make the seed beds. The soil of the bed is to be sterilized either by soil sterilization or by chemical treatment. Soil solarization, as the name signifies, is to heat up the soil or raise soil temperature to 120 degrees or more. So it is an eco-friendly method used to control soil-borne pathogens, bacteria, fungi, nematodes, insects, and weeds. And here, as the solarization word is here, solar energy is used to increase the soil temperature. As an eco-friendly method, what is done in this method? See, if this is an area, the dug area, and it should be made wet. After that, you are placing a transparent or a black polythene covering, and that covering is then covered. The margins of the polythene covering is covered with the wet mud so as to make it airtight. So you are making the covering of this area airtight and then allowing the sunlight to pass it, which results in the heating of the soil. These are the different beds which have been covered with the polythenes for soil solarization. So it is effectively done during summer months, because during summer months temperatures are very high. It can be approximately 40 to 45 degrees Celsius, An appropriate time for soil solarization is May to June. Treatment of this solarization will cause physical, chemical, and biological changes in the soil. What is the procedure for soil solarization? First, irrigate the bed soil, as I have said, because wet soil conducts more heat. Cover the soil with black polythene film of 200 gauge or clear thinner plastic 1 to 2 mil is most often recommended, and it's to be kept for 5 to 6 weeks. Covering should be made airtight by covering margins with wet mud. So, in addition to solarization, soil solarization, because when you are heating up the soil, the pathogens, they get killed because of very high temperatures, and nematodes, pathogens, and insects, and so many soil-borne pathogens are killed that way. Is an eco-friendly method. But the second method is the chemical methods of soil sterilization. One method is formalin solution treatment. Formalin, commercial formalin, formaldehyde, it is prepared 2.5 milliliter of commercial formaldehyde is dissolved per liter of water, and soil is drenched with at the rate of 45 liter of solution per meter square. Top soil surface is saturated up to a depth of 15 to 20 centimeter. The wet area is covered with polythene sheet. It facilitates the fumes to enter the soil. So as we have done in soil solarization, in this soil sterilization method with formalin solution treatment, again after applying the formaldehyde either in this ratio, and then it's covered with a polythene sheet which facilitates the fumes to enter the soil. Polythene cover is removed after 48 hours. And after removing the polythene sheet, the soil is loosened, soil is raked to allow fumes of formaldehyde gas to escape. This is the commercial formaldehyde, CH2O, which is used in a very mild ratio to sterilize the soil. There is one more treatment that's called the fungicide treatment. Fungicides like Captan and Thiarum at the rate of 5 grams per meter square. Captan is an trichloromethyl thiophocyclohexane 1,2-dicarboxamide. Thiarum is a thiarum disulfide and oxidized dimer of dimethyl dithiocarbamate. It is used to control soil-borne pathogens. A solution of 2.5 to 3% is used, and drenching the soil at the rate of 4 to 5 liters per meter square. So fungicides are used against the number of fungus. The most prominent fungicide is the Captan and Thiarum. This is the Captan 50 fungicide. This is how it looks, and this is its chemical structure. It has a trichloride and is sulfur based. This is Thiarum. It's also called the seed cap because it is used as a fungicide for the seeds as well as for the soil. It is bilocular, and it's the chemical structure of the Thiarum is also a sulfur-based fungicide. Insecticide treatment. Chloropyrifos is an organophosphate pesticide. Chloropyrifos at the rate of 2 milliliter per liter of water. It's applied to a depth of 15 to 20 centimeter. It kills insects, ants, their eggs, and nematodes. So insecticides are also used There are also certain bioagents, which are biological agents, are also used to control the soil-borne pathogens. Trichoderma viridis is a biofungicide. It prevents fungal and bacterial diseases in plants. Trichoderma at the rate of 10 to 25 grams per meter square are mixed in the soil, and after 2 to 3 days seeds can be sown. So these are this is a fungicide also, but it is a biological agent, and these are the insecticides. This way the soil which you are making for the nursery beds are to be sterilized, either by means of a eco-friendly method, as we have already discussed the soil solarization, or there can be the chemical treatments. This is chloropyrifos, which is here. These are its different grades. It can be green colored or it can be white trichoderma. So this is the chloropyrifos, which is an insecticide. These are the biological agents. Trichoderma. Trichoderma exists in two colors, which is green powder or it can be the white powder. They are also used as the fungicides. Now, question is how you prepare the nursery beds, which is very important. Preparation of nursery beds is very important. Nursery bed needs to be prepared carefully because you have to obtain a uniform and healthy seedlings. So all the beds should have ample minerals. It should be carefully prepared. Three different ways of bed preparations are there. One is called the sunken bed. As the name signifies here, sunken means deep. The bed is kept 10 to 15 centimeters below the ground level. The soil of the bed is sterilized by soil solarization and with chemicals including fungicides, insecticides, and weedicides. Soil is thoroughly mixed with rotten farmyard manure. Advantages of sunken nursery beds. Sunken beds are preferred in dry and windy areas because it will conserve the water. It helps in conserving and preserving water. It facilitates deposition of rain, irrigation water for a longer duration. It also provides protection to seedlings during high winds because it is below the ground surface, so it protects the plants or the tender seedlings during high winds. So how you prepare it? This is a specimen. See, this is the ground level. You are below the ground level. You have made, this is the ground level. You have made a nursery bed which is below the ground. This is a sunken nursery bed. And how you can make a sunken? That means you have to go deep. This is the walkaway path that is here, and then this is the sunken area. Then this is the path, raised path. And sunken bed is prepared this way. First you are digging it deep into the soil. As you can make the height of it should be this should be the base, and this can be the width, and this is the whole area which will be the width of the bed. So sunken seed bed are made first by digging deep into the soil. As you have the schematic representation here, this is the area which is this area, that is the raised area. Here is the raised area, and you are going deep into this. This is the sunken area. So this area is the sunken, and then the soil, top soil, which has been taken from this dug area, is then deposited back. Is the top soil which is put back to the bottom, and farmyard manure and others are added to it, and still you will see this area is the sunken area, as is this way. So that means sunken bed should be below the soil surface, and it will help in the conservation of the water during irrigation as well as during rainy area. This is the bed width, and this will be its height. This will be the side, which is its walkway or you call it as the raised pathway. So first is the sunken bed. Second is the level bed. As the name signifies here, level is leveled. It is a flat bed made in a leveled plot. All the beds are of uniform size, usually 1 meter wide, and with any desired length. That depends upon the slope of the area. So length is your choice. If you have a slope area, the length can be more because more water has to be, water for irrigation purposes, the water has to flow through the bed. So desired length, but not more than 3 meters. That's manageable width. Length 3 meters is manageable. For adequate drainage, a sandy loam soil is preferred. Irrigation channels are made between the rows of the bed, usually prepared during non-rainy seasons, summer and winter, because they are leveled. During summer and during winter, there is less of the water available, so no waterlogging will be there. So it's a choice. Level beds can be made in summer. These are the area, as you see, they are flat. And this is the walk path or the walkway. This is the flat or a leveled nursery bed. So these beds are preferred during in an area where less of waterlogging is taking place, especially during the summer and the winter months. Then the third one is called as the raised bed. Raised nursery bed is prepared about 15 centimeters high from the ground level. So it's the reverse of the sunken bed. The width is kept 1 to 1.5 meter and length 3 to 5 meters. The inter bed space is kept as 3 to 4 centimeter. A walk path of about 0.5 to 0.6 meters. They are preferred and made during the rainy seasons. Again, you will see here, if you are raising the bed, that means there will be a good drainage. This is the reverse of the sunken. Sunken was down, raised, it is raised up. The ground level is this, and you are raising the bed. So these are the areas, rows of the nursery beds which are raised. And in between them, you are keeping the drainage points also. Canals are being kept between the beds. So these are the raised beds. And the purpose is whenever there will be a water, more rain, that will go easily drained. As a result, raised beds have some advantages, especially when there is more rains also. This is the layout plan for raised beds. These are the two beds. This is the walkway path, 15 centimeters, 15 centimeters, and the width of it will be 1.5 meter or 48 inches. And then this is how it looks. This is the path. This is the inter path between the two beds. This is one more path here, and the area of it is raised. So you have a raised bed. It can be because of the composite or the manure here, and the area will look as convex. This is how a raised bed looks like. It will have a good drainage. These will act as the drainage points also. Between the two, it will act as a drainage points. Or you can have also flat topped. Flat topped is also raised. Here the raising is maintained by sides supported by planks or plastic sheeting. But the level is not convex. It is flat topped. But they are also raised beds. This is the layout for raised beds. What are the precautions to be taken during bed preparations? First of all, nursery bed must be prepared on a fertile soil. It should have rich organic matter. Soil should be rich in organic matter. Should have adequate drainage and aeration. Soil should be with good water retention capacity. For best management, bed size must not be more than 1 meter. Length must be as per the slope of the area. And length should not exceed 3 meters, then it becomes unmanageable. Bed should be made at a site receiving partial shade. So these are the precautions which you are taking while making the nursery beds. Now, what are the containers? Containers are of diverse material because in a nursery you need different types of the containers for different types of the plants. The choice you have, clay pots are there, plastic containers are there, polythene bags are there, root trainers are there, and out of these poly bags are cheap and economical. Root trainers are user friendly and easy to handle and transport. So nowadays you have the plastic containers. Initially there were only clay pots, and now you have polythene bags, you have root trainers also, which are eco-friendly and they are very easy to handle. These are the list of the plant containers. They are of diverse shapes and diverse sizes, and different depths of these are available for different purposes. And then you have a clay pots here. And there are root trainers. See, these are the root trainers where you can put a seed and it will develop its roots here, and it's very easy to handle, and number of the plants will be more in this trainer. Then you have a very economical one, that is the plastic bag, which is perforated. A perforated plastic bag which is filled with the soil mixture, and then either a seedling is placed in it or a seed is placed on it. So these are the polypods which are kept in a nursery bed for the propagation purposes. So these are the different types of the containers which are available for the nursery. And nursery polybags here, and now we have a coir root trainers. They are made from the coir matting, from the coconut this, and this is eco-friendly also. These are the types of the container nursery for making preparations for plantation and for putting seeds and for raising seedlings. Now the important thing is nursery media. What is the growing medium which is required for the nursery? Nursery media or medium should be firm, whether it is a soil, to hold seedlings and propagules during rooting. It should be rich in organic and inorganic elements. Should supply sufficient minerals and nutrients to young seedlings for their growth. It should have good aeration and water holding capacity. So that means a nursery media should have these characteristics, which will support hold the seedling and will also help in the growth and development of the seedling. First of all, we have a soil which is considered as a loam soil. It's considered as a common medium in a nursery. Loam soil composition is sand, silt, clay in 2:2:1 ratio respectively. Loam is the best for plant growth. It has a sand. Sand provide good drainage. Clay and silt holds ample moisture. Silt also contains nutrients. So loam soil is one which is the best medium for the growth of the plants. Sand is a good medium used in vegetative propagation also. Availability of mineral nutrients is affected by pH. Soil pH should be in the range of 5.5 to 7. Most nutrients in the soil are readily available to the plants. So in this range of pH, the availability of the minerals, they are readily available to the plants. So you have to take care of the soil characteristics and to see the pH of the soil also. What are the different potting media available, which are called as the soilless media also? You have peat soil, sphagnum moss, vermiculite, perlite, leaf mold, grain husk, and coco peat. These are potting media which are available. each having their own characteristics and their use. We'll discuss them one by one. So these are the potting soils, all the things. This is vermiculite, this is peat moss, this is composite, this is perlite, and this is sand, and then these are the sawdust, different mixtures together. We'll discuss them one by one. Peat soil. It is a partially decomposed organic matter, mainly formed from sphagnum moss. Sphagnum is a bryophyte, or it can be also taken from herbs, shrubs, and small trees. That means it's a partially decomposed organic matter of a sphagnum moss or other plants. But as far the sphagnum is concerned, is used in air layering. We'll discuss it later. So sphagnum is basically a bryophyte which has a good water holding capacity, retention capacity when it is dry also. It's growing on the surface of the soil or rocks. It is used for packing also, packing and transportation of the plant material, because with the root, when you are keeping this sphagnum moss at the root of the plant, and you are adding water to this sphagnum moss, it is having a good water holding and retention capacity. So it helps in transportation, but here it's also used as a media for growth of the plants. So this is the peat moss, which is taken from the sphagnum, the lower portion of the sphagnum bryophyte. This is the dry part of it. So sphagnum, this is called as the peat moss, and sphagnum peat moss is the lower portion, or the sphagnum moss is the aerial portion of the bryophyte. The next is vermiculite. As the name signifies, vermiculite means worm-like, but it is not worm-like. It's a natural mineral. It undergoes significant expansion upon heating, and heated product looks like a worm. A hydrous phyllosilicates, or it is a hydrated laminar magnesium aluminum iron silicate, a natural mineral. It is shiny flakes or usually golden brown or blackish in color. Once it is added, it improves soil structure, it improves its aeration, it improves soil water retention and nutrients, used in seed germination and vegetative propagation. So vermiculite is a natural mineral. These are the different grades, the large grade of it, the medium grade of it, and this is the fine grade of it, vermiculite. Second, the next one is called the perlite. Perlite is a mined volcanic rock product. It's made from volcanic glass superheated, composed of 70 to 75% silicon dioxide. It's used as a soil supplement. It improves soil structure, provides excellent drainage and good aeration. See, if you have to use it for the seed germination, then there should be 1/2 of perlite and 1/2 of the cocoa peat. The cocoa peat we will discuss later on. If you are using it for the cutting, the propagation material is the cutting, and there you can use 100% of the perlite. So it is also a mined volcanic rock product, silicon dioxide. This is the white perlite, and this is how once it is mixed with the cocoa peat, and these white are when you are going for the seed germination. But if you are to use for the stem cutting, that time you can use the perlite only. Next one is the leaf or litter mold, a well-decayed mixture of leaves and other plant materials that you called as the litter mold also, or called the leaf mold. So it's a decayed mixture of leaves. It is produced by fungal breakdown of litter. It contains humus. Humus is a thick, dark organic material, a complete decomposed product of organic litter. It increases soil fertility, promotes plant growth, improves soil texture, increases moisture retention capacity, and also acts as a mulch. See, when it is kept on the top surface of the soil, it acts as a mulch. And during winter, it can warm the soil during winter. So this is leaf litter, leaf or litter mold. Leaves are being collected here. They are being kept together in the form of a pile together, and then it undergoes decomposition. The decomposition is the fungal decomposition, and ultimately the humus of it is used as a nursery medium. Next one is the sawdust. Sawdust is a byproduct of woodworking. It is used as a compositing material. It is used to add carbon to the mix. It balances the nitrogen from green compositing materials, acts as a filler, and is absorptive. It absorbs water from rain and moisture from the green material. Helps in compositing process. And you can see sawdust, which is used here, or it is used also as a mulch between the crops, so that there is less of the evapotranspiration, there is more of the heat generation during the summer months, during the winter, to heat up the soil. The next one is the grain husk. Rice husk or hull is a coating on seed or grain, composed of silica and lignin. It's a byproduct of rice production during milling. So when you are taking a rice, and the milling product is called as the grain husk. Rice husk ash, a dense source of carbon. So you are taking this grain husk and burning it, and then its ash is called as RHA. Rice husk ash is a dense source of carbon. When composited, can increase the water nutrient holding capacity of soil. It improves soil aggregates. It improves porosity of the soil, and it improves the infiltration in the soil. So grain husk is also used for these purposes. This is a rice husk ash, which is after burning the rice husk, you have the ash of it, which is used as a soil media. The last one is the cocoa peat. Cocoa peat is a natural biodegradable fibrous material obtained as a byproduct of coconut husk. Mixing with soil improves soil texture, makes sandy soils more compact, clay soils more aerated, improves soil aggregation, increases water retention capacity, increases microbiological activities, leads to better nitrogen fixation and nitrification. So cocoa peat has number of the characteristics. Being a fibrous material, it improves the texture, it improves the aeration, and it also improves the water retention capacity of the soil. Here is the cocoa peat. It comes in the form of blocks, 5 kg block, and then it's to be wet with water, and it's the powder cocoa peat. Then it is added to the pots or to the soil, where it helps to consolidate the soil. If a clay soil is there, it will help its more retention. So we have seen in this video the preparation of nursery beds, types of nursery beds, what are the different types of the containers used in nursery, and what are the available growing media which are used in nursery raising. Hope this video will help you in understanding the layout of nursery beds and different types of the materials available and their role and their significance. I hope you have understood this video. Feel free to subscribe the channel for the latest updates. Till the next video is uploaded, goodbye. Be happy, be safe. Thank you very much.